Start sequence.
I'm Ashley Dvorkin for Fox on Reddit. It's been an intense week for Redditors following the dismissal of Reddit's Director of Talent, Victoria Taylor. Several moderators shut down subreddits in protest for 24 hours, and now many of those involved are speaking out about the blackout. Joining us now to talk about where things stand and where it goes from here is Mashable's senior business reporter, Seth Fiegerman. So welcome, Seth. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And let's just start with a little bit of background on how all of this happened and why and where it stands now on the site.
I think this is part of a long simmering feud between the moderators and the employees at Reddit. But what ultimately set off this, keg was basically they canned a much beloved employee. You can't pin it all to an employee, but she handled a lot of their affairs, just organizing interviews with well-known people. And they gave no notice to the moderators who've worked for months or years on the site for no pay. Ultimately, they felt disrespected by that. And it's understandable to some extent, but they basically put a chokehold on the site.
Yes, and as you said, so the moderators are the volunteers. This is coming down to sort of those who are the moderators and volunteers, and then the employees and the decisions that are being made by management. Now, really quick, I want to say Victoria Taylor, who's at the center of all of this, went on to Reddit with a statement since her departure and said, "I've been incredibly humbled and honored to serve this community, and I truly believe all voices matter. Your voices matter. You proved that this weekend, and really this weekend wasn't about me, it was about you. And if I know one thing about this community, it's that you'll continue making your voices heard, and that's an inspiration." So your reaction to her going on to Reddit and saying this, and what effect do you think that'll have?
That's a nice statement. I think every employee's dream is that when you're pushed out of a company, everyone takes notice of it and mourns the loss. So she's probably enjoying a little bit of that. I doubt she wants to see the site go down in flames, but what everyone wants to hear now is why you were pushed out and what you're doing next. I can speak personally. We had talked to her even a couple days before this happened. It seemed very clear that she had no intention of leaving the company at that point. So it seems clear to us that she was certainly ousted. Whether it's for commercial reasons or something else remains to be seen.
Sure, and of course this is just part of a bigger picture as well. The AMA moderators, they also have shared their thoughts, the ones who had temporarily shut down those subreddits, and it was in a New York Times op-ed. They said, "Our primary concern and reason for taking down the site temporarily is that Reddit's management made critical changes to a very popular website without any apparent care for how those changes might affect their biggest resource, the community, and the moderators that help tend the subreddits that constitute the site." Okay, so now we talked about who these moderators are. So what was your reaction to the way that this was handled and what they're saying now in sort of the bigger picture here?
Well, one, it's interesting to see Reddit moderators get a New York Times column.
Yeah.
I think they raise a valid point, which is that there has been this long tension between the community and now people running the community. The moderators feel disrespected. They feel that decisions are being made about the business model and the format of Reddit without their consideration. And ultimately, it is a game of chicken. The moderators do provide a vital function for the site. They keep it vibrant. They ensure that the most popular sections continue to run. But ultimately, the ones I've talked to are not ready yet to say goodbye to Reddit. This is where they put hours, days, months of their time. They don't want to give it up for nothing. But ultimately, if they keep, chokeholding the site, that damages it one way or the other.
Yeah, and a lot of the blame is been put on interim CEO Ellen Pao. And there are even change.org petitions to have her resign. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
There is one petition in particular that, last I checked earlier this week, had more than 200,000 signatures. Reddit has has hundreds of millions of users, so it's a fairly small amount, but it's enough that there is now a strong narrative basically saying that she either does not get Reddit or she is deliberately trying to corrupt the Reddit of old. Whether that's true, I don't personally believe it. I think she is playing a role as interim CEO and trying to take Reddit from a site with a wide user base, but not anything that compares to Facebook, trying to make it a little bit safer and a little bit more palatable for a broader user base, and ultimately for marketers to come in and make this a viable business. They did take $50 million in funding last year. That doesn't come without strings attached, and she's probably getting the brunt right now.
Sure, and do you see that being the direction that Reddit's going regardless?
Yes, I think it would be, at this point, impossible for Reddit not to continue to try to find ways to get rid of the roughest edges of the site, maintaining some of the controversial features of it, but knowing that that gives it its vibrancy, but ultimately trying to find new and better ways to appeal to marketers so that they can actually succeed as a business.
Yes, and Ellen Pao did issue an apology on Reddit, and she said we screwed up, not just on July 2nd, but also over the past several years. We haven't communicated well, and we have surprised moderators and the community with big changes. We have apologized and made promises to you, the moderators and the community, over many years, but time and again, we haven't delivered on them. When you've had feedback or requests, we haven't always been responsive. The mods and the community have lost trust in me and in us, the administrators of Reddit. Today, we acknowledge this long history of mistakes. We are grateful for all you do for Reddit, and the buck stops with me. So, where do you see this going? For her, for the site, what's next?
I think in recent months, Reddit has a pretty tried and true model for dealing with this, which is make a controversial step that affects the community, and then very clearly apologize, and then make another. At the end of the day, apologies won't be enough. They have to actually make good on showing the moderators and the community at large that we can explain to you why we're doing this, and be attentive. And I think Ellen Pao in particular hasn't been the best at communicating with the user base so far. And admittedly, as a woman, she's getting some very hateful, misogynistic comments from users. But even if you put that aside, she seems right now to be the outsider in this community of millions of people who really don't like outsiders messing with their site.
Yeah, with all of this going on, I mean, do you see it in any way as the beginning of the end of Reddit?
I think it would be overstating to say that now. I think if they have another blackout, if they start to see an exodus of the most influential users, like any network, it ultimately subsists on its user base, and its hardcore user base in particular, which are the moderators. But there's definitely a narrative now, and that's a dangerous thing for any CEO. There's a narrative saying that she doesn't get the site or that she's trying to destroy it, and they need to reverse that narrative soon.
Sure. Well, great. Seth, thank you so much. Appreciate all your time today. And thank you. And for more from Seth, see his piece on Mashable.com. And thank you for joining us here on Fox on Reddit. I'm Ashley Dvorkin.